Welcome to I Said What I Said, a sports podcast giving you opinions not heard anywhere else. I'm your host, Brad Wakai, alongside my co-host, Tyson Gentry, and we are back for another reaction show here for the college football weekend. And boy, oh boy, do we have a show today because we got a lot of things we got to talk about. Stuff we were right about, stuff we were wrong about, upsets, people being assholes. We got to call them donkeys. And then it's supposed to be a boring weekend, but we got some previews that we got to get through, Tyson. And every single time we say it's going to be a boring weekend, college football delivers. How was your Saturday?
Saturday was awesome until my home team lost, but we don't have to talk about that at all. I thought the football this weekend was actually pretty good. I was encouraged by most of the slate. I mean, I was glued to my seat until 11 when that Oregon Boise State game ended my time. So I felt like the slate was good. We had some real stinkers kind of in the middle of the day. But in all college football stinkers, Brad, you get guys like Nico out in Tennessee and some of these other things you can pay attention to and just go, oh, man, 4 weeks from now, this is going to be fun.
So let's jump right into it. And this is our segment called I Told You So. And this is going to be me patting not just myself on the back, but Tyson as well, because we came in here and said Ashton Jeanty is the best running back in the country. People were around the country were saying, and different analysts, well, maybe this guy and these guy and this guy. No, Tyson and I said Ashton Jeanty's the best. That's because we actually watch the sport. That's because we dive into it and we are sickos and actually pay attention to the players on these teams that other people, there's not a little Buckeye on the helmet. Not in the South. No, we don't care. We know Ashton Jeanty's a dog. And this weekend, he went 25 carries for 192 and 3 touchdowns against Oregon, who everybody and their mother said, they can compete in the Big Ten immediately. Oh, yeah, they have just so many dudes and NFL guys everywhere. And this guy just clowned them. I mean, he was a one-man wrecking crew. He was unbelievable. And so Ashton Jeanty, you got to take a bow. Tyson, it's going to be a tragedy when the people forget about him when he's in the Mountain West play and some slap actually gets invited to New York over him. But I got to say, this is an impressive performance from him so far. I hope he goes for the record and proves us all right again.
Oh, he's getting the record. He's got 1,000 yards essentially in a couple of weeks of play. He's got 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 touchdowns. I don't even know what it is anymore. You said 25 carries for 193. Brady gets 30 carries, they win the game. I don't think that's a controversial take. He was killing Oregon, and they went away from it, started throwing the ball. And I understand, they're going to be expecting to run. We can't run. That dude was making, that's a Big Ten defense. That's what he was thinking the whole time. And I know maybe he won't get the invite to New York, but Brad, can you have a Heisman moment in a losing effort? Because he just did. Does that count? Because that's the last time the national people are going to see him. And then he's going to keep having 150 yards and 3 touchdowns against every other team in the Mountain West.
I hope so, man. I mean, the timeline was going crazy on socials. I mean, people are like, Jeanty, this is unbelievable. I'm like, yeah, that's why I got to listen to this show.
Look, I mean, we said it last year that we didn't think there was any first-round running backs in 2024, but in 2025 there will be at least one, and Ashton Jeanty was the name that we said, and God damn it, we told you so. And you know what I said a couple weeks ago, Brad? I said that Colorado was going to implode in the second half of the season. I said that I think it's kind of a circus, and there's not a lot of leaders over there, and I don't like who I see when I see Shedeur Sanders, and it's not because I don't think that he can play football. I don't like the way that he talks about his teammates. And what happens? They get destroyed by Nebraska. I mean, it was 28-10. Don't let the score fool you, folks. Those 10 points was almost, hey, just let him in. This is over. Dylan Raiola, go sit on the bench. We don't care about any of this. Actually, I thought their defense was fine in the second half of Colorado's, right? They didn't let this thing snowball out of control. But to get on the mic and say, how many times Raiola get touched?
Oh, my God.
Blame other people. I mean, this is a circus. This is exactly who he is. This is a team full of front runners, coached by a front runner, coached by a bunch of front runners who joined this staff. You can't – we said it 100 times over the offseason. You cannot buy an AAU team. That's one of the reasons we were low on Miami, one of the reasons we were low on Colorado. And we're probably wrong about Ohio State. They look really good, but that's a little higher level, right? That's Peach Jam. These guys are playing in the local circuit here. But I thought Colorado was going to implode around week 6 or 7. that might still be on the table because they should win this week. Like they're playing Colorado State. That's a game you have to have. But the writing's on the wall, brother. This is not a team that is going to fight for each other. This is a team that's going to roll over the second things get hard.
I'll take my pound of flesh on Colorado coming up later in our segment. Segment that's coming up later. But Tyson, oh boy, I'm already flustered because I just can't believe how angry these guys make me. It's SMU. I got to put my hand up. I was completely wrong about them. They are bad. They are a bad football team. This offense stinks. We talked about Rhett Lashley and, this offense, Preston Stone, he's going to be so good. The guy's horrible. And he got benched for Kevin Jennings, who went 15 of 32, 140 in an interception. They were on the frickin' plus 50 4 times and scored like 6 points. Against BYU, a defense that's atrocious, a defense that can't stop a nosebleed. And SMU, who has all these hopes, all this hype of coming into the ACC year one and competing with Clemson, with Florida State, with these guys who've been getting their teeth kicked in for years by Florida State and Clemson who are ready to play now. No. This SMU team is bad. I was wrong. I made a mistake. I bought into the hype. And now I'm an idiot. So I got to put my hand up on that one.
Yeah. And you know what? That's okay. Like it's okay to miss on your SMUs every now and then. We were just excited before the season started. And look, we're not local reporters. We just read what the beat reporters are saying. And then we're the only 2 idiots dumb enough to be like, this guy that worked for the school says they're going to be really good. They're going to be pretty awesome. So that's on us. If you fell for it, we apologize. My hand up is Clemson. And this goes back to my take on our betting show last week where it was like, yeah, they lost. They got killed by Georgia. The offense looked like trash, and I think the offense is going to look like trash again. Like I know it's App State, and I know App State's a down program, and they have lesser, athletes and all of that stuff. That was let's just kick the shit out of them to like show us ourselves that we can do it. Like I still don't think 𝐾𝐨𝐽 can play. The dude had like 3 passing touchdowns on his first 12 attempts or something like that. They were moving the ball. They scored a ton. I felt like as far as bounce backs go in college football, that was as resounding of one that you can have. That was one that makes you think, well, the ACC does look open. And like I was on Florida State before the year. I was wrong about that too. And so I think that Clemson, I read too much. Like Georgia is as good as I think they are.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that might be one of the bigger takeaways from this whole thing. But I apologize to Clemson. They put the boots to Appalachian State and made it look easy, convincing, and it's not off. Like, how was 60 points boring, right? Like that's the way they made it look. It was just like up and down and up and down. It was, turn something else on.
Yeah, it was impressive. It was super, super impressive. Defense looked good. 35 points in the first quarter.
Yeah,
new program record. It was over immediately. I mean, it was great. So, that was a big thing for Clemson. But nationally, Tyson, let's get into the biggest storylines of the weekend. And if this is your first time tuning in, we'll talk about the upset of the week, and that's going to be Notre Dame. So we'll dive into that. But we'll lead off with that. Holy smokes, what a disaster that was.
Yeah. I mean,
could you believe that was happening? I'm just trying to wrap my head around it still.
This is something that I'm mad at us for missing. And not that we would have had Northern Illinois to win the game, but you and I both have like a huge soft spot and one that we end up being wrong about, but sticking to your priors and your convictions. It's a senior-laden team. Like it's a team that's been around each other and played a ton of football together coming in here. And like the way that they beat Notre Dame too, it wasn't like, oh man, they're fighting at the very last second of the game to come back and win this thing. They controlled the shit out of that football game. They made it look like, look, you guys paid us $1 million to come down here and do this to you. You can't stop that. We're running the same play over and over and over and over again. And I've got some stuff for Notre Dame in my Donkey of the Day segment, but the playoffs are shot. Like that's it. We talked about it before the season started. Like they might have the easiest walk to the playoff because they're going to get through. They're going to be 7-0 before they play anybody, and it's not going to matter. It's done, dude. Like, they would have to beat somebody by 40 points, like one of these big schools at the end of their schedule to get back in. And the other big storyline, Riley Leonard stinks.
Ooh, man, ugly.
I thought, like, when he was at Duke, I was like, this is my kind of football player. And now he's at Notre Dame, and it's like, oh, no, I liked it when you were playing North Carolina and Bud Tech and Virginia. Like you can't. Was it 4th and 2? Right, he's got a check down to the right, wide open. He's got a guy in the middle of the field, wide open, and he has an out-breaking route to the sideline. his eyes don't leave the man over the middle of the field in double coverage. And by the time he throws it, he's triple covered. Game's over. You are paying 3 quarterbacks upwards of $3 million. This cannot be the product that is put on the field.
No, it was bad. And I'm get into that a little bit more when we get into upset of the week. I just so much more I want to talk about, but I wanted to use that as like a primer. Tyson, that was almost the storyline of this entire weekend. I mean, the upsets that almost happened were, I mean, crazy. I mean, my alma mater, Penn State, holy smokes, talk about an escape at home against Bowling Green. They were freaking losing at halftime 24-20. Oklahoma, after putting the boots to Temple the week before, were struggling against Houston. That looked anemic. They scored 2 points in the second half. In the fourth quarter, it was horrible. Jackson Arnold looks like he has real issues. And Tyson, that's not even to mention Oregon almost loses, who we talked about with Ashton Jeanty. I probably should have lost. Alabama, talk about a phony final if you ever seen one. That was a dogfight against South Florida. And thankfully for them, they didn't schedule them next year or the year after that. I think they're done with South Florida because they almost beat them 2 years in a row now. But, oh, man, this was an eye-opening weekend. And we kind of talked about it last week with, you know, are the teams catching up? Are the lower levels catching up? But, man, I don't want to make a bold proclamation, but woo-wee.
The Macs caught up, brother. They're here. I mean, Bowling Green looks like world beaters for damn near 50 minutes of the game against Penn State. I know Penn State was able to get some breathing room there in the second half. And but then Bowling Green did a little something and made you go, oh, man, this is going to be a stressful finish. And, like, you didn't even mention Tulane should have won that game against Kansas State. Northern Arizona was in a dogfight with Arizona, which is just ridiculous.
They're up at half.
Yeah, that can't happen. All throughout college football this week. So we say all that to say there's like 2 teams right now that I know are good. It's the Georgia Bulldogs and the Ohio State Buckeyes. I think those are 2 teams that I can kind of stamp right now. Everybody else, brother, I don't know what we're getting week to week. Like, is Ole Miss just going to keep scoring 50 and not showing us anything? Like, I want to be able to judge these guys, and they look awesome. But when you're doing it to Middle Tennessee State, it's a little different, or Incarnate Word or whoever it was. They played week 1. And the other part, Brad, one of the bigger storylines to me, some of these big schools are playing with their food a little bit. And I think that is contributing to the near upsets or the upsets, but we're not in the BCS era. You don't got to win by 60. Just get the job done. And it feels more so we could get the job done, or we could try to throw the ball to Ollie Gordon in the corner of the end zone. Like Oklahoma State lost that game to Arkansas.
Oh, my God. That game was crazy. Okay. Last thing I want to discuss here, biggest storyline. I want to do a deep dive and get your thought on this. Michigan stinks. I tweeted it out. Oh, man, I did too. No, they're dead. Like, this is a 7 wins. If you're lucky. Tyson, their quarterback situation is atrocious. Their wide receivers are the worst I've seen at Michigan. I'm not kidding you. Maybe worse than Rich Rod. Maybe worse than freaking Brady Hoke. Nobody can get open. It's horrible. Donovan Edwards, we talked about it. I mean, he's the only guy who did anything. 8 carries, 41 yards. I think it's a disaster that he even carried it that few times in the first place. I mean, I understand that you're getting your ass kicked early, but holy smokes, that's better than Davis Warren going out there and looking like a slap, throwing things around and throwing interceptions. Colson Loveland, the tight end, only guy. I mean, really, Samaj Morgan, okay, talk me into it. Guys had 5 catches for 45. The long was 31. What the hell was he doing with the other ones? This is a bad football team. This is a team who got bullied in the trenches. I think the coaching staff is in over their head. I thought it was a reach when they just hired Sharon Moore. Tyson, it seems like they don't even believe in him itself because he doesn't have a contract. I think this thing could come off the rails quick in Michigan. And let's not forget what this program was before Harbaugh took over. I know people were dunking on Harbaugh. Oh, they can't win the big one. And that, well, the last 3 years he proved how good of a coach he is. Once he leaves, what's this thing going to turn into? This looks bad.
Yeah, this was not set up in your Ohio State way where there's like a clear line of succession. It's like these dudes are going to continue to roll, or seemingly what Nick Saban just did at Alabama. We'll talk about them a little bit and maybe some fraudulent, box score watchers out there. But like covered in the sense that like they were really good before we were born. And then, our entire lives essentially until Jim Harbaugh showed up. it was like 9 wins is a really good Michigan season. You said 7 wins, and that's essentially assuming they sweep against Arkansas State, Minnesota, Washington, Illinois, Michigan State, Indiana, and Northwestern. After watching them play Texas, and look, I think Texas might be really good. Like that's one of the teams that I'm not totally sold on at this moment, but that's because of how we feel about Michigan. Like I think I might take Illinois straight up.
I was just gonna say that.
That might be crazy. I might be wrong, and we'll find out on October 19th. But they don't look good, brother. And you were kind of approaching it last week like maybe they weren't putting some things on tape and they were saving it for Texas. I think they were putting things on tape because they don't have anything else to put on tape.
That's how I'm at now. I'll tell you this much: the way 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐫𝐬𝐻 looks for Michigan State,
dude, they're good.
Holy smokes, man! Can he shred this team up? I mean, Michigan State. He might be a first round pick. I can't believe that they got that kid. I mean, Jonathan Smith, shout out. But Michigan, what a bad performance. Any other big storylines you want to get into, or you want to keep this moving?
That was pretty much it from this last week. I didn't think that there was a ton that was like there was like a bunch of storylines, but they were all the same thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah. All right, donkey of the day, and I'll lead it off because Tyson discussed it a little bit with Colorado, but I want to get my pound of flesh in here. And I'm going to preface this by saying I don't hate Deion Sanders. I don't hate Colorado. I don't hate Travis Hunter. I don't hate Shedeur Sanders. I know there's a subsect of people out there who do. That's what their prerogative. I think it's a loser mentality. I think it's a loser way to go about life. And I think it's just a classic sit in your house and just criticize things that you don't like type of mentality. And I hate it. But there's also the other side that looks at Colorado and thinks they can't do anything wrong, and they stand up for them no matter what. And I think that's a loser mentality as well. Like you make mistakes, you got to own up to it. The way that Colorado has been acting this season, and coming out of last weekend is a complete clown show. It's completely unacceptable, and it's completely something that you expect from a nepotism program. And that's, make no mistake about it, that is what the University of Colorado is right now. It was a good story when Deion Sanders went there, and it was a lot of energy, and it was a dead program, and it needed somebody to inject life into it. You bring in a guy who could be a first-round pick in Shedeur Sanders. You bring in just an elite talent in Travis Hunter, and you start building things. Tyson, he doesn't care about building this program the right way. He refuses to go into high school programs or high school houses and talk to high school kids and get them in. He only cares about transfer and what can we do now while my son's here, while Travis Hunter's here. And kicking Sean Lewis out to the curb because your son was getting tackled too much when that was the only time your offense was just doing good. How about you tell your son to throw the ball away? How about you tell him to make better decisions? How about you tell him to quit running around back there? And oh, by the way, Shedeur Sanders, when you make a mistake, you own up to it. Because this wasn't – sure, the offensive line has some issues. That's her dad's fault. You got to go and get guys. That's ultimately what he's there to do. And then you got to avoid it. Like if you know that you're going to get hit, you can't be holding on to the football. You got to make quick decisions and get rid of the ball. So donkey of the day is this entire operation. I just can't believe what this has turned into. It started from a fun story, and it took on a life of its own where race and everything was involved, and it was just completely like a dumpster fire just from not even their own fault. I mean, they were just trying to play football games. It turned into this like sickening both sides of the situation that wasn't what it should have been. And now we're at a point where I think even the most staunch Colorado fans are turned off by what they're doing, because for Shedeur Sanders to be sitting up there and blaming his offensive line for that and throwing them under the bus, dude, get a clue.
And blaming his defensive line for not getting pressure. It was like a twofer. He hit both sides, and that is a good point. I do want to put that out there. Like, I know that I said I don't think that they're like leaders, but that's from a football standpoint. Like, I don't think that this is a group of people that have a leader in that locker room capable of winning games. I don't care about the rest of it. So miss us with the race baiting stuff or whatever else that it is. We're talking ball. And as far as football goes, they look like frauds. And that is what it is. Speaking of frauds, man, my donkey of the day, Mr. Marcus Freeman, come on down. Welcome to the program, sir. This will not be your last time on Donkey of the Day, I don't believe. Bradley loses the game to Northern Illinois, which, like, you can't have that anyways, but it happens in college football. We've seen Nick Saban lose games. We've seen BK lose games, all the way back to Barry Switzer lost games that he should have lost, right? So that's not the issue. The issue is to get on the microphone afterwards and say that the team lost because they were drinking the Kool-Aid. They were believing their own hype a little bit. Whose fault is that, dumbass? You're the head coach of the program. What do you mean the guys were doing this? You're in charge of the guys. What were they doing when you lost to Marshall in 2022? What were they doing when you lost to Stanford in 2022? How does this keep happening? You can't sit there and say, well, it was just like a matter. We were believing our own hype and, we'll get things figured out. You don't have time to get things figured out. This isn't Tulane, right? This isn't SMU, who we talked about, or this isn't Appalachian State. This is Notre Dame. You cannot lose games like that, especially the way that he took over the program. It was kind of haphazard, and it was like Brian Kelly leaves us in the middle of the night, but we got Marcus Freeman, and they come out, and they're like awesome in the first week, and Notre Dame's winning the national championship. And then he's just got these lulls. You know who else had those lulls? Brian Kelly. Like, you can go all the way to Charlie Weiss. Like, who else do you want? This is a Notre Dame thing. Those guys also blame their players. We have a problem with those guys blaming their players. You can't sit here and do the same thing. I can't stand when a coach sits, except for Gundy. So I'm hypocritical a little bit. But when they get on the microphone and they say, well, the reason we lost was this. But this isn't the X's and O's. It doesn't come down to the Jimmys and Joes. It's because we were drinking our own Kool-Aid. That's your fault, brother.
Well, to go into the upset of the week here, I want to get my pound of flesh on Notre Dame. I mean, we can see there's some common themes here, but that's really the story coming out of week 2. I mean, as we go along the season, when there's huge matchups, we'll get some more stuff in here. But Notre Dame losing to Northern Illinois, that is massive in any decade that you're living in. It's Notre Dame football. We're talking about Notre Dame. It's unbelievable. We're sitting here and saying they lost at home as the number 5 team in the country to Northern Illinois. I mean, it's unfathomable, but that's where we are with this program. And I hear people, well, Notre Dame can get into the playoff if they win out. I'm sorry. If you lose to Northern Illinois, I don't even care if your resume says you shouldn't be in. You're probably not good enough to win out in your schedule. Like, let's just be frank. They're going to get pounded by USC. I mean, let me pull up the schedule here because I just can't believe it. That's the rhetoric here. Yeah, Louisville could literally end their season to close out the month of September. How about Stanford? Can Stanford come in there and pull off an upset? We know those games get crazy. Navy is running the football, and it didn't look like Notre Dame could defend it. By the way, you got Florida State. We think they suck, but at least they got some guys who can run or whatever the case may be. Then you close at USC. That's a bloodbath. And how about Army? They run the ball. Tyson, this could be a disaster. And people are talking about winning out. Winning out what? They got to hope that they can win out of Purdue. I mean, it's crazy that this is the situation. And Marcus Freeman, nice guy. Freeman, the players love them. Marcus Freeman, everybody's like, woo, it's not Brian Kelly. Woo, this is going to be great. We have a loss to Marshall. We now have a loss to Northern Illinois. We're talking about a team who should be in the college football playoff. This is 12 teams. They might not get in. It's crazy to me to think about. And I know I'm the Brian Kelly guy, and this is the Brian Kelly podcast. Brian Kelly wouldn't have lost that football game, folks. He's a better coach than Marcus Freeman. I know you hate him, but Brian Kelly's a damn good football coach, and your hate doesn't let you see that. And this is what you get whenever it's all kumbaya in the locker room, boys. Like, yeah. Sometimes you need a hard ass. I'll just say that.
Brian Kelly would have won that game and then blamed his players. And that's really the biggest difference I think, between the two of them. I mean, like the way they lost too, Brad. I mean, Northern Illinois goes 50% completion. Like they were 10 for 20 throwing the football. They didn't have a guy over 100 yards. They ran the ball like 60 times. You knew what Northern Illinois was doing. You couldn't stop them. You had to fight your way back in the third quarter. You get the ball, awesome. Like we just got to go score a touchdown. You do that. And then Riley Leonard just forget which team he plays for. Like Mike Denbrock leaves LSU, the number 1 offense a year ago, and this is the scheme. Like you can't even get guys open against Northern Illinois. What is the problem here? And maybe it's we talk about it sometimes. There's stink on some of these programs. Maybe there's a systemic issue or an institutional issue with Notre Dame that's preventing them from winning games. But again, like we talk about it in the NFL stuff all the time, some of these owners don't have the guts to move on when it's time to move on. And not saying that Marcus Freeman deserves to lose his job, but you can't have this. You just can't.
All right. Well, we've done a lot of preaching. We want to get to some fun parts here and give a little more subjective and preview some games, the biggest games. So Playbook Preview. we got 3 games in the docket this week that Tyson and I are really going to be sitting down and making sure we watch this one. And the first one, kind of a dud a little bit when you look at the rankings, but I think Alabama going into Wisconsin is fascinating. I don't think Wisconsin's very good. I'll just put it out that way. You know, we text each other every single weekend, it seems, about Tyler Van Dyke. Like, dude, what happened to Tyler Van Dyke? But he could do the most hilarious thing and pull off the upset of Alabama. I mean, we talked about, you know, the phony final they had against South Florida. People are like, woo, the Boar. They just haven't missed a beat. This is the best team. And I mean, how funny it would be if they go into Wisconsin and lose to this team, and people are talking about Luke Fickell might be on the hot seat because it hasn't looked good in 2 years. I mean, this is just a classic college football scenario.
No, 100%. I mean, it's Camp Randall, and I know there's more intimidating places to play in the South, and I'm not saying that, like, Alabama's not going to be able to handle the Wisconsin crowd. These guys just love football. This is going to be an electric atmosphere. Schematically, Wisconsin looks like they have a real, like, they've made improvements on how they want to run the ball. And that was something that we kind of always looked at a year ago and was like, man, you have Braylon Allen. This is the offense. And this year it feels like they're doing things a little bit different. Like Phil Longo, you know, for as much crap as we've given Phil Longo, he can coach the football a little bit, and he can win some big games. Are they going to beat Notre Dame or Wisconsin? They beat Notre Dame. Are they going to beat Wisconsin or Alabama? Probably not. But this is like, it's got all the makings of it, doesn't it, Brad? I mean, it's an early kick. It's a tough place to play. You look like crap a week ago. Nobody in the country looks good. Your quarterback still can't throw the football. Wide receivers are hurt. What is happening?
Oh, boy, this would just be so good, especially on a week 3 where we're like, yeah, there's just not very good matchups this weekend. You know, this is kind of the one you take your kids out. You got to go to the football or soccer game, and you don't really feel bad about missing the games. And oh, my God, Alabama lost Wisconsin. Like, it does feel like that's classic. Now, do I think it's going to happen? I don't. I just think Alabama has too much top-end talent where they're going to be able to beat Wisconsin. But, you know, look up, and it's close. I would not be surprised, that's for sure. How about this one? Number 20 Arizona taking on number 14 Kansas State. This is on the road. This is on Friday. So just take another game on Saturday. That's a good one. But at least this is a standalone primetime game. I mean, Arizona looked bad last week. The offense was terrible. Their offensive line is banged up. Holy smokes, did they get exposed by Northern Arizona? Noah Fifita had no time. Literally, it was set hut, and he was running for his life, scrambling around. It was bad. Tedoroa McMillan, I don't know if he was banged up, but 2 catches after what he did in week 1, that was jarring. And Kansas State, you already mentioned, they should have lost to Tulane. Their coach, you know, Chris Kleiman, he's like, yeah, well, you know, it's good that we won. We could have played that, or we played that bad. Is that because you kind of dodged the bullet, or is that just the situation where Kansas State Wildcats are right now? So I'm curious to get your thoughts on what you expect to see in this one.
Yeah, and I shared this with you before the show, and I stole this from Reddit. So if you're listening, thank you for the free advertising here, whoever posted this. But over the last 3 years, teams ranked 11 through 15 in the AP poll are 7 and 8. They're 2 and 8 against Power 5 opponents, 2 and 5 against unranked Power 5 opponents. Not saying that Arizona is going to that somebody in this 11 to 15 window is going down, whether that's going to be Kansas State, Oklahoma State, kind of dealer's choice there. But Arizona's defense probably isn't good enough to win in this football game. And I think that is the number one thing that you're looking at. Northern Arizona didn't score a ton of points. I told you on Saturday, like as we're watching this game, like Northern Arizona is supposed to be like 5th best in the Big Sky Conference in the FCS, and it's the 2nd best conference in the Big Sky or in the FCS, which is the 2nd best conference in college football. Like this game shouldn't be close, especially not after what we saw from Arizona in week 1. Does Ted McMillan look like Ted McMillan again? Maybe. I think Fafita being under a ton of pressure didn't help things, but you also think, oh, like let's just hit quick stuff to my 6'5", 40-inch vertical wide receiver and just get the ball moving. They weren't able to do that. And then, like, what is Kansas State going to play a normal football game? Or are we just going to go through this whole year with whatever the hell is going on? Tulane absolutely should have won that game. They gave it away. Tulane has a better defense than Arizona, and I think that Kansas State might just be able to, like, Arizona's not going to be able to run fit on defense the way that Tulane did, and that's a death knell against a team like Kansas State.
Keep an eye out for a huge Avery Johnson game, too, quarterback from Kansas State. I mean, Devin Dampier, week 1 for New Mexico, ran all over this Arizona defense. And Avery Johnson, he had that hurdle. Did you see that?
Yes.
Holy smokes,
Yes.
that was sick. That was like, I don't know if this kid's going to be like a good quarterback, but he's going to have some highlights when you're like, whoa. And so that maybe could be coming here. This will be a fun one on Friday night, though. I think I'm going to have a bet in it. And Tights will tell you where you can find at the end here, but I think this is going to be up and down the field. So let's close here. And I don't think anybody would have thought this one would be the one we previewed. How about number 24, Boston College, heading down south to face number 6, Missouri? And we were high on Missouri coming in. You were high on Boston College coming into the season with Bill O'Brien back in charge. And the way they just took apart Florida State. Oh, chef's kiss. Wow. I mean, talk about just a beautiful game plan and not changing it once it was working. My goodness, can people learn a thing or two from the NFL expert and the NFL coordinator, Bill O'Brien? Oh, it's gorgeous. But I think this is a step up in class. I mean, we thought Florida State was going to be, a college football playoff team winning the ACC. That was a lot of people's thoughts coming in. And, Missouri, people were like, we'll see. And they got a lot of returners that they haven't really bought in. This offense is going to be on a different level than what they experienced against Florida State. I know Boston College is coming off a bye. So are they able to be a little bit more prepared here? That's something I'm keeping an eye on. But I think this will be a good game. I think we'll learn a lot of things about Boston College. If there's fraudulent, how bad Florida State is, just saying that. If Boston College looks bad. And, Missouri, we got to learn about their defense. And I think Boston College is, strangely enough, in a position where they can test the Tigers.
Yeah, and I think it'd be easy to look at this point in the season and say, well, Brad, Missouri's strength is their defense. It's because they haven't played anybody. Like, it's hard to tell how good a defense is when they're just kicking the shit out of some team from a school you've never heard of before. So I think that is going to be a true test. Boston College is going to be, they're going to be physical. They're going to be Bill O'Brien football, in the sense that, they're what you're getting. This isn't going to be a surprise. Boston College is going to show up and play Boston College football. I think the biggest thing to me about Missouri, Luther Burden goes out with an illness at halftime, and Theo Weiss Jr. is just awesome. It's just they have another guy. Brady Cook isn't afraid to throw the football around. I just think that Boston College is a fantastic story, and the reason they have a number next to their name is because they beat a team that everybody in the country, myself included, massively overrated before this season. I am excited for this game in the sense that I'm pretty sure Missouri is as good as I think. This is the first time that we're going to get to see it. And if you haven't yet in the last 2 years, do yourself a favor and watch Brady Cook play football, because this dude doesn't get his name brought up at all with the rest of these guys. And it's like, man, everybody was talking about Kyle McCord for 11 games last year before somebody tuned in and was like, oh, he sucks. Brady Cook has to go undefeated to even get a mention in these combos. And
I do want to apologize to 𝐬𝐿𝐾. That's who Boston College played last week. It wasn't a bye but Boston College treated it like one because it was 56-0. So, all right, well, 3 games for us here on Playbook Preview. I'm curious what you guys think just about our thoughts in general of some of the rants that we had. I mean, there was a lot of stuff to react to. We said we had a show and we want to deliver it because we had a lot of thoughts we want to get off our chest. But we got more content coming out later in the week. Tyson, where can they find our bets in the meantime if we like something?
Discord, people. The group name is I Said What I Said. Tons of different channels in there. One of them is college football. We're going to have live stuff because I don't know if you've noticed out there, but you can take advantage of some of these markets moving during the games, and you disagree with where the market goes because you're watching it with your eyes, and you can make a little bit of money. And let us know what you're playing. If you got some 4-leg parlays that you really like this week. Sometimes in college, Brad, you got to scum the books a little bit. You got to swallow it and take just a disgustingly gross play that you don't really like. But it's more fun to do it together, and it's more fun when you got 15 other people saying, you know what, I'm doing the same thing. And that's the community we're trying to build in our Discord app here. And I think it's a good time. It's certainly more fun than doing it by yourself. So do yourself a favor. It's free. We'll charge you after you get it.
Click the link in the bio for sure. It'll, like Tyson said, it'll take you right in if you just smash that thing. And in the meantime, like, subscribe, and share the show. Seriously, we can't pound on this enough. Stay subscribed because we got a lot of content. We're here with you all football season. We just did our NFL reaction show. So if you're curious what our thoughts are on what happened in week 1, there was kind of some crazy stuff that happened too. Go check that out, whether you're listening in podcast form, if you're watching on YouTube, that's in your feed. and smash that like button if you're on the way out on YouTube. That does help us out a ton. We'll be back later in the week. It's betting only. That's the way we're doing it here. We got our NFL pick show, our college pick show. We'll take you into the weekend, and then we'll react to what we saw on the other side. So talk to you about bets later in the week. Till then, guys, peace.